Hi. So in this video, we are going to talk about the CCSP exam outline, which was effective from August 1st, 2019. So here in this outline, it talks about the kind of syllabus, kind of domains we have as part of this exam, and the experience requirement. For example, total 5 years of experience which is required in the exam. If we talk about the information security, then we need 3 years of experience in information security and 1 year experience in one or more of these six domains of CCSP CBK. If somebody is holding the CCSK certificate, then there will be waiver of 1 years of experience. And if somebody is holding the CISSP certificate, then there will be entire CCSP experience waiver. If you don't have experience, the candidates who don't have the experience to prove, they can also sit in the exam, and they can go for the exam and become the associate of ISC Square. So for the exam point of view, this exam's duration is 3 hours, and total number of questions 125. And in nature, the format of exam is the MCQ. Mostly questions are multiple choice. Passing grade is 700 out of 1000 points. Exam availability in English, and we have to visit the Pearson VUE's testing center to attempt the exam. In terms of weightage, the first domain related to the concept, architecture, and design, it is holding the weightage of 17%, and the data security is 19%. Then platform and infrastructure security is again 17%. Application security is also 17%, and security operation as well. The legal risk and compliance is 13% in the weightage. So this is the curriculum that we have, and these are the topics which will be coming in the exam. The cloud computing definition as per like NIST, and we have ISO as well. You need to refer the NIST documents here for the definition purpose, and for the other, for example, the deployment, for example, for the cloud computing characteristics. For the roles, you can refer to ISO 17789. So that is very important document. Standard, which will clarify all these roles clearly in that document. Building blocks, the virtualization. So these are the main cloud building blocks, like virtualization, storage, networking, database, and orchestration. So this is important concept to understand for this exam. Cloud reference architecture, the cloud computing related activities, and the capabilities that we have, the cloud service categories, yeah, the cloud service offerings, SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. Similarly, the deployment models, public, private, hybrid, and community, and the cloud shared considerations. For example, if you are using AWS, and if you want to move to some other cloud, then your applications and your services should be interoperable, or should support the portability. So the interoperable here is that your application is compatible with AWS, with Google, or with Azure, and the different clouds. While the portability is that you can move your easily from one cloud to another, and that's how it supports the portability. SLAs, you need to make sure that SLAs are clearly defined for the kind of service. For example, whether you need 5 nines availability, or you need 7 nines or 9 nines availability in terms of the criticity of your business. Impacts of the related technologies like machine learning, artificial intelligence, or blockchain and IoT. So these are all connected devices that wants data anywhere here, and the devices needs the intelligence, hence the AI, ML, blockchain, and IoT. So this topic is related to the connected devices that needs the data anywhere, anytime. Understand the security concept relevant to the cloud computing, cryptography, key management. For example, when to encrypt, where to encrypt the data, and where to manage the keys. Whether we need to manage the keys within the HSM on the cloud supported HSM, or um, we need to support the keys based on the on-prem hardware HSM, or something like that. So that depends on the risk analysis, and how you will decide, how you will assess the cost benefit analysis. Access control, who should have access to what. Keep access to the keep access to data controlled. Not everyone should be able to access, and in terms of data at rest, how you can protect the data at rest. For example, encryption, how you can protect the data in transition, in transit, for example, TLS, data in motion or data in use. While the data is being used or being processed in the memory, then how would you ensure that it is being protected in use even. Data and media sanitization, once you're done with the data, and you are even if you are moving from one cloud to another cloud, then how would you ensure that data is not anymore in there, and you have sanitized everything. The most effective way in the cloud is the crypto shredding, or we call it sometimes cryptographic erase, where we encrypt the data and we remove the encryption key. Network security is the important topic, that is like defense in depth or multi-layer layer security. For example, when you enter into the office, you have the main gate, and then you have further access to the inside door, and then you have access to the systems where you have to work. So that is defense in depth. And similarly, in the network security, you need to have like NIDS, IPS, and then you will have firewall, and then different other systems. Virtualization security, the hypervisor security, and container security. These are very important topics. Common threats. You can go through the ENISA document for this to understand the common threats and common risks. Understand the design principles of the cloud computing. Whatever you need for protecting the data, cloud-based disaster recovery, and business continuity planning. For example, to perform to support the BCDR, or what you need to do is identify the asset, risk, classify the data or classify the assets, and then plan the business continuity. You need to perform the BIA for that purpose, business impact analysis, and then you have to also plan for DR, that is disaster recovery. It is a form. It is from recovery perspective once the disaster has happened, and business continuity is how to continue with the business without an impact. Cost benefit analysis is the crucial aspect of any BCDR, of course, and how to classify the asset. Because if you do not classify the asset properly, then we will end up um, misusing the critical resources for the data, which has no importance to the organization. On the other hand, we may end up losing the data, or we may end up not protecting the data, which is very crucial to the organization in the absence of proper asset classification. Portability, interoperability, like vendor lock-in. So these are important terminologies that we need to understand. Security considerations for the SaaS, IaaS, and PaaS. Who has the more responsibility, whether provider or customer, in SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. So this is very important to understand. And evaluate the cloud service providers, like for verifying our compliances, evaluate providers for the different compliances like ISO, PCI DSS, depending on whether we are processing the payment cards data. And similarly, the common criteria and the FAPEs, which, for example, if you are using the key management services, then whether these are common criteria certified or FIP certified, etc. So different standards in there. In domain 2, it is important to understand the data lifecycle. Like, the important here is the CSU. Uh, if you feel CSUSAD, so that is, these are the six phases of the data. And similarly, here the data dispersion. So what is data dispersion? In traditional IT infrastructure, we used to have RAID, redundant array of independent disks. Similarly, in the cloud, we have data dispersion. In data dispersion, the data is stored in the multiple clouds to achieve it. The important aspect here is that the data residency, that depending on the compliances we need to achieve. Also, to comply with the different regulations, we may need to restrict the data within the particular geography. It depends on what kind of regulation that we are complying. Some regulations probably, yeah, that the personal data or any critical data should not leave the borders, and they need to have the localization, for example. So in that case, the data dispersion becomes the area where we need to focus more. Design and implementation for the cloud storage architecture. There are different storage types we have, and depending on the regulation compliances, we may choose, whether we need to store the data for the long term or for short term, and what kind of disk that we need to use for the storage, when we choose the cloud services for that. And also, the volume and object storage. What is volume storage and when to use it, when should we use the block storage, and what are the threats to the storage types, to the different storage types. So it could be related to the data retention related, or it could be related to the kind of device that we have, chosen for storage. Similarly, for the design and apply the data security technology and strategies here, it is again related to the encryption and key management, um, where to encrypt and when to encrypt, whether on the client side or the customer, or on the server side. One important aspect is, remember, always that we need to keep the data and the key segregated. It should not stay in the same cloud or in the same custody. So that is the important aspect. Hashing is the use case for achieving the integrity for accidental changes. Like masking is, for example, your credit card, your last digits are visible and rest are hidden. So that is masking. You mask the other digits. Tokenization, you don't want to share your exact data and you want to share something else in place of, for example, your credit card. So you tokenize those digits and use the different values for the transactions. Data loss prevention, you identify the data, you classify, and you protect that. Data obfuscation, data de-identifications. So these are the important terms for the exam. Data discovery for structured data and unstructured data. Similarly, the data classification, like here, the mapping, labeling, it is important to classify to justify the importance. If you fail to properly classify, it may lead to the data leakage or increase the cost of the data, which is not important to the organization. Sensitive data like PHI, PII, PFI, and we need to take care of the different regulations related to the personal data. IRM, what are the objectives of the IRM and the appropriate tools that we have for that? Plan and implement the retention policies and data deletion procedures, archiving, and legal hold of that. Auditability, traceability, and accountability is important. The sources and the requirement of the identity attribution, logging, storage, and analysis of the data events, chain of custody, and non-repudiation. So, chain of custody is important for the forensics. That's why it has to be always in the consideration for the exam. Uh, Domain 3 related to the cloud platform and infrastructure security. It has different aspects here, like the comprehend cloud infrastructure component. What are the physical environments, network and communication, compute, virtualization, storage, management plane. So that is from the perspective of the providers, and these physical security, physical environment, network and communication, and these are all at the IAS level. These are uh, all the resources or kind of elements which are controlled by the cloud provider. Design a secure data center, the logical design, tenant partitioning, access control, physical design, how the data center should be, for example, for cooling the racks, how the aisles look like, cold aisles or hot aisles, where should be, how should be the flow from front to back, from cold to heat. That's how. Environmental design, heating, ventilation, HVAC, so multi-vendor pathways, connectivity. Risk associated with the cloud infrastructure. The ENISA risk document plays the important role here. So I would recommend to go through that document for understanding the cloud risks. Design and plan is security control for the physical and environmental protection on premise, system and communication protection, for virtualization system protection, and the other aspects to the cloud infrastructure for logging and for authentication purpose. Disaster recovery and business continuity. So we should always come up with the risks. If we cannot continue with the business, then what could be the risk to the business, to the finance, etc., to the revenue, in terms of the business requirements. For example, the recovery point objective. So recovery time objective is that what is the maximum time that the business can tolerate to recover the services. Recovery point objective, what is the um, uh, what is the maximum data that we can afford to lose. For example, recovery point, if something goes wrong and if we are able to recover the data from first July, for example, last 1 month data, if we are able to recover that, then we are good, there is no loss. So that is the recovery point objectives, and that should always be known to the organization when we plan for BCDR. And similarly, the recovery time objective, so how much time it should take to recover these systems, and recover means it includes the backup of the data, it includes the backup of the services, it includes the backup of the workloads which are running on the cloud. Domain 4 related to the application security. It is important related to the software development. Let's say the software applications that are usually overhauled or designed from the scratch to keep them cloud compatible, because it is not possible that if these applications are being used in the traditional IT infrastructure, and one day if we decide, okay, we need to migrate to the cloud, and we think that okay, these applications can as it is be kept on the cloud. Sorry, we cannot achieve the different criterias of the cloud, and those applications would not be compatible with the cloud in that case. So if we say scalability and the elasticity, we would probably fail there, because these applications are not really compatible with the cloud, and we need to overhaul these applications. So in terms of the trainings, yeah, so we have the developers who are working on these applications to develop. So these developers should be trained enough on the cloud development basics, on security, common pitfalls of the cloud, and the common cloud vulnerabilities that we have. Secure development lifecycle. So, what are the business requirement, different phases and methodologies? So, this could be the like the different different SDLC methods. Like we may have we used to have waterfall model earlier, and now the world is moving to agile and safe, etc. So how we induce the security into these kind of SDLCs, software development lifecycle, considering the cloud, and the agility that we need for developing the cloud applications here. Apply, so when to perform the threat modeling, when to identify the common vulnerabilities in the cloud specific risk, and so all in all, this is kind of DevSecOps, or we can say CI/CD, that how the security tools can be integrated with the software development lifecycle. Apply the cloud software assurance and validation, functional testing, security testing methodologies here. For example, the vulnerability assessment and pen test. We identify the vulnerabilities, and we perform some attacks on that. Similarly, we may have DAST, like dynamic application security testing. We have SAST, static application security testing, and these activities should be part of the SDLC. Use verified secure softwares. Always use the approved APIs to integrate with the different clouds. Use only approved third-party software. Use only validated open source software. So when you use the open source software, always go for the security check on these open source software. um, it is important, very important, to consider this during the secure development lifecycle. For the cloud application architecture, so we have different security components here, like web application firewall, database activity monitoring. We have XML, we have API gateways, cryptography, sandboxing, virtualization and orchestration. These are the important for deploying the cloud applications. Security component location to the security architecture, especially that covers that. Cryptography plays the vital role here in this. Sandboxing is, again, it isolates and utilize only the intended component while separating the remaining component. In cloud, untrusted codes are tested in the sandbox. We have IAM, Identity and Access Management, importance of the federated identities. What are the problems that federated identities can solve in the cloud? What is identity provider, single sign-on? What could be the problems with the single sign-on? How the multi-factor authentication is effective? What kind of multi-factor authentications are? And what is the CASB, Cloud Access Security Broker, in the cloud? Security operations, it is important to understand the physical and logical structure, for the servers that are there. For example, the configuration requirements. We have BIOS, settings for virtualization, TPM, and storage controller network controller. The core of the main element of the cloud, like network, storage, memory, central CPU, installation of the guest operating system, the virtualization tool set. uh, what could be the issues with the hosting OS, and what could be the issues when we install the guest OS on top of that, and what are the virtualization tool, what should we keep disabled all the time, and when should we keep them enabled. Operating the physical and logical infrastructure for cloud environment, the KVMs, based access mechanisms, RDP, secure network configurations, what is VLAN, when to use it, TLS, DHCP, DNS, and VPN. So these are all network related and very much for the infrastructure security. What are the benefits of keeping the baseline OS? What are the benefits of keeping the OS hardened always? The availability of a standalone host, clustered hosts for DRS and DO, dynamic optimization, storage clusters, and availability of the guest OS here. We have different different infrastructure to manage, like here we were talking about the operate physical and logical infrastructure. Here, to manage these physical and logical infrastructure for cloud. So this is related to the change management, what all phases, what all things are there that we need to consider from ITIL point of view, and standard 24x0, continuity management, information security management, incident management, problem management. What is the difference between both, in the problem management and the incident management? The incident management is always the first priority is to bring the service back to normal, and for the problem management, the understand the root cause, why it has happened and how we can avoid in future. um, the risk release management, deployment management, configuration, service level, availability, and capacity. So these are all things that we need to understand from the exam point of view. Forensic data collection methodologies, evidence management, collect, acquire, and preserve. So these things are important for the digital forensic. What is acceptable in the law of court and what is not. Manage communication with the relevant parties, like vendors, customers, partners, regulators, and the other stakeholders that we have. Manage security operations, so the security operation centers, and what all devices should be there, and what is the role of IDS, IPS, honeypots, and the other activities. What is SIEM, and why we need SIEM, um, and what is incident management. Legal risk and compliance. This domain is primarily focused on the international laws, state laws, criminal laws, civil laws, e-discovery for the forensics, understand the PII, understand the FPI, um, PFI, understand PHI, GDPR, contractual, regulated privacy issues like uh, you may have, for example, in when you are operating with the business in a particular country, there may be the contract. You will always have a contract with the customer, but the customer's requirement says something which is conflicted with the regulation. So what comes first? It's a law of country which comes first. So always think that the law of the country would come first and will always override the contract. Audit types, we need to understand the external audit, internal audit, different SOC reports, SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3, and we have SSA standard, ISA standard for the audit reports type. Gap analysis, when should we do, what is the benefit of gap analysis, audit planning, what all activities that we need to do while we are planning the audit, ISMS audit, HIPAA, PCI DSS, and critical infrastructure audit type. And then we have cloud to ERM. So the enterprise risk management, important from the enterprise point of view. We cannot transfer risk to the cloud provider. It is always the customer's responsibility to manage with the risks. We need to understand the who is the data owner, who is the controller, who is custodian, and who is processor. um, when you are collecting the data from your end customers. So it is important from the regulation point of view. Always think about the risk treatment, like when to avoid, when to modify, when we can transfer the risk, and different risk frameworks, metrics for the risk management, and so on. Understand the outsourcing and cloud contract design. So it is always recommended that to have proper SLAs, always review and thoroughly check the contract, and do the vendor management and contract management, and right to audit should be the right to audit is the must review thing that we should take care always while we are dealing with the contracts. So yeah, so these are the domains pretty much as part of the CCSP exam outline. I hope this gives you the very high level overview that what all we need to study and what we need to review while we are preparing for the exam. With this, we can conclude this video. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for watching.